Welcome everyone back to another episode of Q&A with Sharon's son George. I was my mother's caregiver for the final 4 years of my mother's life with Parkinson's disease during her battle. She was diagnosed 15 years, but sadly she passed on 1/1/2020, and we started Together for Sharon.com in her memory and to advocate for a cure for all those still battling today and their families, because no one is ever alone in this fight for a cure. Today's guest is someone I've been really, I think, really close friends, but never met. So it's always like an honor, to be honest, to me. And she'll say she won't agree, but she's a hero. Some of the things that she does, despite, well, she'll get into it, her diagnosis is not just inspirational to people diagnosed, but also to caregivers, because alongside, if we fight for advocacy and hope for a cure, I think our voices are so much stronger. So welcome to the show. It's such an honor to finally have you with us.
Thanks, George. I'm really excited to be here and share my perspective and the crazy journey that has been Parkinson's disease for me since my diagnosis, which was April of 2022. So it's been a wild ride, but I'm definitely better now than I was back in those days. I was very confused, angry, sad, depressed, all of the stages of grief. And I've been able to come through all of this into acceptance and really just rely on the fact that we will not stop until there's a cure. There's a huge community out there on social media, really pushing towards a cure, and that we will accept nothing less. So that's what I love about you is just your advocacy on the cure, that you are relentless. I mean, you have no dog in this fight, right? Your mother has unfortunately already passed away, and yet you continue to make it your life's mission, and that is just something very inspiring to me. And we thank you all, from the bottom of our hearts for doing this for us. And we're in this together.
I really appreciate it, and I'm not going to cry yet, so we'll save that for later. But it's I always also say a lot of times, my wife's like, "You sure everybody you're gonna have a big family?" But I do feel we're all family in this, because I felt alone for the time I was caregiver. I didn't even know all of you amazing people listening, and my amazing guests here were out there. And sadly, the heartbreaking part, which today again is uplifting, I hope, and inspirational, my mother never met someone in 15 years with Parkinson's. So if you imagine us in a room in a house, just kind of throwing papers and trying to find anything and everything. I mean, we tried, you name it. There was nothing I regret about that. Obviously, I lost my best friend, but I think she lives on through every person I meet and everyone who shares this. And again, today is really about you, but also in memory of everyone who lost their battle, but we still have so much more work to do until the cure is at everyone's doorsteps around the world. So I have to start today with saying how inspirational you are. Uh, there's been tough times, as everyone listening might know. I've had many surgeries. I'm hoping that now I get a little break, but who knows? I myself am going for a DAT scan just out of my own curiosity. But I, every time I get out of anesthesia, which sounds odd, you'll never hear that on another show. I literally pick up my phone. I see you out there fighting, working out, doing things that I can't do without Parkinson's or with, and just a beautiful story, because there's someone out there, and I hope we just reach even, I mean, I hope we meet more, but if we even reach just one person sitting home as we're, playing this, and they think it's kind of over or it's tough, we're here to, I hope, to let you know listening, it's not. And you have so much support out there, everyone. And you have such heroes, in my opinion, as our incredible guest. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about, what inspired you to kind of fight back, but also be an advocate, because it's not always for everybody.
Yeah, so I will say that I am a very passionate person. So this has not come like all of a sudden to me with the diagnosis of Parkinson's. I've always been someone who fights for what I believe in and is passionate about my life. And so when I was diagnosed with Parkinson's, it was just a huge crush to my soul because, as you know, it's a dopamine deficiency. So this passion, this zest for life that I had was gone. And I wasn't depressed, but something was wrong. And I wasn't able to live at the level and the vibration that I was used to. And it made me start to then get depressed and trying to figure out what was going on. My diagnosis story started in 2019, but wasn't officially diagnosed with Parkinson's until 2022. So that was extremely difficult for me those 3 years, going to experts, going to multiple doctors, being told that I had everything from essential tremor to potentially multiple sclerosis to potentially just, I need to relax and chill out a little more. So I really, really hope that my story and the advocacy that we do together in the Parkinson's community, at least there's someone out there. If we can touch one person and make someone's day, to tie the loose ends together, to explain all of the symptoms that they're experiencing, and not to go through the 3 years of hell that I and many people with young onset Parkinson's disease had to go through. That's all worth it to me. Just touching that one person is really important to me. So I started off as being a passionate person, and thankfully, with getting properly diagnosed and getting the right medication schedule, carbidopa, levodopa, and rasogeline are the two medications that I take. It gave me my life back. And so when I had a second chance at life, and that's really how I look at this, I'm grateful for all of the things that have come my way in life. And I remember reading Michael J. Fox's book, and him saying in that book that he was grateful for his diagnosis of Parkinson's. And at the time, I was still so angry because it was very new and fresh to me, and I could not understand how he could be grateful for the Parkinson's disease. Now I'm on the other side of that, and I completely understand what he's talking about. If my story and my experience can help someone else out there who's struggling, and if my daily workouts can inspire someone who doesn't feel like they can get off the couch, or doesn't feel like they can lift a dumbbell, or doesn't feel like they can do a squat, or doesn't feel like they can do a box jump, if my daily inspiration can touch someone else and get them moving, we all know movement is medicine. That is the number one thing I think that we all agree on. We may not agree on the same diet for Parkinson's. We may not agree on the same contraptions to help with tremors for Parkinson's, but something we all universally agree on is exercise. And so with I spent a good 18 years of my life in the corporate world, but also as a fitness instructor as a second job. It was very easy for me to parlay that experience and that muscle memory of working out into now working out and having Parkinson's. But it didn't, I didn't start off my Parkinson's journey and my fitness journey at the same level. So it took me a while to really focus on health and nutrition and wellness from the inside out. That kind of was the piece that I was missing. I was working out consistently, but I wasn't eating the right nutrition to support the growth that I needed in order to really perform at the gym. And that's kind of what's changed in this past year. I've really been able to dial in my health and nutrition, specifically lower the environmental toxins that you guys know that's a huge influence in people who are getting Parkinson's disease. And when I got my genetic studies back from PD Foundation, they did mention to me that it's not genetic. So this is something that environmental toxins are a part of. So I've really stripped down my environmental toxins. I really worked on my fitness and health and nutrition. And it wasn't an easy journey. But again, if I can share my daily life with someone who is wondering if they have Parkinson's or have been recently diagnosed or have had Parkinson's for 15, 20 years, then I feel like all of this putting myself out there into the world, which can be scary, as you know, George, was worth it. So that's kind of like my background and my inspiration for what I'm doing within the Parkinson's community.
Going back a little, when you had struggled to find out the diagnosis, like many do, I don't even know if my mother knew she had Parkinson's for many years, which is why for 7, I don't think she shared it. Either she didn't want to burden the family or she really wasn't sure. What can you tell everyone listening, even the medical world, to be able to kind of comfort or put their arms around more individuals who are just seeking help and proper direction? Obviously, we know sometimes you need a second opinion, but to have to go to, we went to 15 doctors, and I
Mhm.
still don't know why it sped up and where my mother is right now. Like, I don't understand, because they were told us many opposite things as to what happened. So I'm curious, in your opinion, is there anything really? I know they have busy schedules and things, the doctors, but it's got to be some way. And now you're making me think about more writing because there's got to be something, a message we can send in a positive, obviously, way and supportive to help shape and change how individuals can find out about their diagnosis more effectively and efficiently.
Yeah, I think that there are a couple of lessons to the healthcare community just in general. Number one, Parkinson's is not an old person disease. More and more young people, and I'm talking people who are even in their teenage years, are being unfortunately diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. So I think the medical community, perhaps when they are getting trained, perhaps when they're doing their residencies, perhaps when they're new to the field or doing their internships, we really need to communicate and send the broad message out that this disease impacts all ages, unfortunately, younger and younger these days. I met with many medical professionals who like could not even fathom the idea that Parkinson's would be a culprit. And that's just not true anymore. So again, living out loud, being an advocate, trying to get my message out. If it takes a cringy video of me walking across my, foyer, to get people to look and go, she's young. What's going on with her leg? And is that a gait issue? And like, what is that? Oh, that's Parkinson's disease. And having a conversation in the comments about there's no way you can have Parkinson's disease. Well, this just gets the word out that this is a possible diagnosis for so many people, and it's not just an older person's disease. So I think the more we can communicate that, the more we can talk about the symptoms, 40 symptoms or so in the Parkinson's community, and how they all can tie eventually to Parkinson's disease. I think the more informed people are, they'll start to really ask those questions instead of dismissing it. And, I'm a medical professional and I know that this is a 65-year-old and plus disease. Is just not true anymore. So number one, it's about getting the message out and broadly communicating that this is the number one fastest growing neurodegenerative disease in the world. Number two, specifically for me, I know you're going in for a DAT scan, but how they did my DAT scan was that I received the order from my neurologist. I went to a lab company, they did the DAT scan, and then they sent me home with the results the same day. That was a horrible experience because I got to read the DAT scan results, which indicated on the paper advanced stages of Parkinson's disease in my car while I cried to myself. So what I would recommend is those DAT scans and those lab results, from the neurologist or from your MDS, if they could go straight back to the doctor. And I know that it may be inconvenient in that you would have to wait for the next appointment, but I would have given anything to have a more compassionate conversation, have someone who is an expert in the field of Parkinson's disease explain to me those results. All I saw was advanced Parkinson's disease, and it was just a horrible, horrendous way to find out that news by yourself with no support, no community to turn to. I remember going home and talking to my mother and my husband, and they didn't have any answers for me. We didn't even know what Parkinson's disease was. So and then by the time your doctor's appointment comes up where they read you the results that you've read on the paper 7 days, 10 days later, you're kind of dead from the news. I mean, you've gone through the grief, you've gone through a whole week of grief, you've Googled, you've WebMD'd, you've done all the things, and you've kind of made your own decisions on what this means for your life. And I just wish if I could turn back the clock and have that result read to me by my neurologist to answer questions immediately, to hold out her hand, to show compassion and care, to make sure that I had my husband there, and I wasn't discovering this news alone. Those are the things that I don't wish upon anyone. And those are the things that I think our healthcare community can improve to make the experience a little better for everyone.
Thanks for sharing that. The one thing that fascinates me about the show is we might have a plan and things, but it always something new I learned. So I never had someone walk me through that journey, and that's so important because I think it's groundbreaking and it really might open up the world and eyes to many listening. So thank you for that. Wanted
Yeah.
to now talk about another area which will probably make myself look bad, but I was a personal trainer and I can't do most of the things you're doing now today. But I do want everyone to please support all that you do at PD, and this is in TikTok at pd.family.com number 5, and I'll add this to the notes so you can all click. But please follow my incredible guest, and I want this thing 1 million followers, and she knows I won't rest until that happens. That's what we want here. Maybe you could talk a little bit about, I always joke and say I want to like everything as we talk, but I already have. So maybe you could talk about the importance of, we just went through a hectic week here. We're in 2025. I never used TikTok in my life until 2 years ago. And even when I started, I'm like, forget it, I'm not into it. But then all of a sudden, I met some people. Then those people multiplied to more people, and then it became my PD community family too. I'm kind of the adopted guy because I'm not diagnosed, and just everybody's been open arms, and it's been a beautiful journey. But it's incredible, I think, whether the bad stuff and downside of all social media. There is so much positive, especially for the Parkinson's community. I think we need these tools. So maybe you could touch a little bit about how you keep coming up with such new and fresh content, but also the importance of all the messaging and things that I'll play while you're talking.
Yeah, appreciate that, George. And sharing my social media. I basically, how I come up with the things that I share is like if it's something that's challenging me in the moment, I ask myself, is this something that's challenging someone else right now? And if that's the case, then that's my opportunity to share that experience, to share that moment. Sometimes I don't even realize that it's going to become a thing. For example, my micrographia, which is the inability to write legibly. That is a symptom of young onset Parkinson's disease. I was going through some old journals that I had back in, early 2010s, and I was looking at my beautiful handwriting. And then I was at the same time also writing a check, and my handwriting was just atrocious. And I thought, maybe sharing my story about how my handwriting has gotten worse and worse with Parkinson's disease would touch someone else, because it was definitely something that in the moment, looking back at my journals and just fondly remembering the days where I could write endlessly, or I could, eat without being perplexed with dyskinesia. You take these things for granted in life. I don't want anyone who is either a caretaker for someone with Parkinson's, or maybe someone who's just trying to learn about the disease, to realize that it really impacts so much of your life. And so just sharing these things that can be embarrassing, can be something that I don't want to go through, but something that I think is so important, because there's always someone out there who either has a question about that, like, is this Parkinson's related? Is this, midlife related? Is this perimenopause related? If I can share the experience and say, yes, definitively, this is Parkinson's related, that really helps them. And a lot of questions are answered that haven't been asked because people are too embarrassed to ask. But there are a lot of good things that I'm doing in terms of just bettering myself with health and wellness. And then there are also, the tough times and the daily struggles that I share with Parkinson's disease.
It's really incredible, the topics and things. I think it's important to tackle tough topics. That's why we have a blog on that. But I think if we don't talk about these tough topics, then it becomes even more of a dark place for many individuals, unfortunately. And by you advocating and discussing it, I think it brings a little bit more openness and ability for others. And as you can see, everyone, we wouldn't have the time but to look at some of the beautiful positive notes, from other people who are feeling the same way, and also appreciate all you do. Also, Instagram, it's easy because it's the same name, but pd.family. That's how we met. And some of the
Yeah.
individuals you share here and shows you've been on, we share everywhere. We also love supporting others. And I always mention to everyone that this is not about anything except we want a cure and awareness. And we have to reach the world. So it's really not easy to do it alone, but we will try together, as though I think we get much stronger. Some of these videos too bring back some of the tougher moments for me because it mirrors a lot of what my mother went through. Of course, she wasn't in the digital age, so you might never see a computer with any of my mother's thing. But again, I think it's so important to share these. So again, everyone, please go to pd.family on Instagram, and also pd.family.5 on TikTok. But again, I'm going to also share those links for you. Well, I really
That's,
appreciate that. Yep.
yeah, I was just going to say, George, I can't wait to pin this conversation
Thank
to my
you.
wall as well, and share this podcast, because sometimes just hearing someone's story in long format is great. You can only share so much in 90-second intervals on a reel. It's great to be able to have a conversation.
No, I appreciate it, and that's why we started this. I was again, I won't go through the whole story. A lot of you listening know, but only 2 years after my mother passed, I knew there were over 1 million people in the U.S. with Parkinson's. But then I learned about the World Parkinson Congress, and my jaw kind of dropped in a positive but also sad way to learn that there's 10 million people around the world with Parkinson diagnosis. So that's when I went on a journey to really share other journeys and stories, and interviewed 1,000 people, and I loved it, but it wasn't the same as this. And this is why we kind of branched off, and excited to say this is growing beyond me. We wanted one show a month. It's been 80. Don't ask. And then we have some celebrities coming on. So I don't want to jinx it or say names, but some big time people and CEOs now and founders of, so it's been a beautiful ride. But at the end of the day, the titles are nice, but the people are the ones that I love the most, the real life stories, the that really I feel I kind of relate to as a caregiver, but also seeing my mother going through all the stages, unfortunately, of Parkinson's. Now, as we kind of conclude in a little bit, actually, I did have one more question because you bring up something, and we could spend 12 hours and you won't want to be my friend, but we concentrate a lot, obviously, on young onset here. It's very important to me, as I know it is to you. But there was one area, oh yeah, you said genetic testing. That's a really fascinating topic that we're going to have a actual scientist eventually on, but maybe you could talk a little bit about the whole process. 'Cause I think I should do this. And, we're told they're not like statistics or research much that says it's genetic, but a lot of people I've had on the show, it's been in the history in their families. My mother is the only person I know that had Parkinson's, at least that I'm aware, but we weren't aware. So that doesn't help. So I'm just curious, like if I wanted to go testing for that, or anyone listening, what's the process? And is it the Parkinson's Foundation or somebody else?
Yeah, it's the Parkinson's Foundation, their PDGene initiative. You can go ahead and Google it, and it's a really quick and easy process. There was a bit of a backlog when I first put in my submission, but once you get the kit in the mail, it's a very easy, like cheek swab kind of test. You send the information back, and then you get an email with the results. Now, something I will say is that they are testing for, I think, like the top 6 gene mutations that have been proven scientifically to have a high correlation with the diagnosis of Parkinson's disease. But that doesn't mean that there aren't any other gene mutations out there that you may have. I believe in my letter reading something along the lines that there is over 200 different gene mutations, and it could be that you have a super minor one. The other thing that I think is interesting, just with the technology and science that we have in this day and age, just if you look back one generation or even two back into the 30s or the 50s, a lot of the symptoms that a middle-aged person may exhibit could be a myriad of different things diagnosed wise. So, again, back in the day, did I have a great grandfather who had Parkinson's disease, but they just thought he was an older person and he was losing his mind, or that he had XYZ symptoms and they didn't correlate it with Parkinson's disease? I think that there's a high chance of that. So although I also don't have anyone in my family that I know, I have family members that I don't know, and I think that we've come very far with really understanding all of the symptoms that lead to Parkinson's disease. And this is just not you getting older. This is actual symptoms for a neurodegenerative disease, and there are over 40. So I think it's always a great idea to get tested, even if you don't have a familial linkage to Parkinson's disease, or if you don't have Parkinson's disease at the moment, because so much research and science is coming out on how to keep from getting Parkinson's disease, what to do to make sure that you have the best cognitive function as possible. And if you have the keys to potentially, I have this opportunity, you can take steps now to make yourself the best person that you can, so that hopefully that Parkinson's diagnosis never comes your way, or the mutation doesn't happen, or the dopamine neurons don't get tangled. I would always want to be empowered and be proactive.
So much information. Just me looking into that site and doing that sounds like an entire show about, showing
Yes.
people, and I appreciate it. I did hear once of it, but there's so much out there. Sometimes it's overwhelming too, even for me. And I'm no longer, going through a lot of the important areas we need to. So now I wanted to shift to the final part of the show, but I always hate saying final because I still think there's a lot more work to be done, and we'll be doing that together in the future. Can you list 3 words that describe who you are?
Ooh.
This is a hard question.
Badass, passionate, disciplined.
Thank you. What is one moment or most memorable moment so far that stands out through all of your work with awareness that you can share?
I really feel like it's been the tiny interactions that I've had, the people that I've met. Again, anyone listening to this, if you are scared to notify the world that you have Parkinson's disease, I get it. Create a fake account, but get on Instagram, get on TikTok, show your story, share your information. We don't need to know your. I've spoken to so many people out there who I don't know their real name, I know their handle, but they are getting so much joy and love from being part of this community. And one day you might change your mind. People have. They go from their burner account to a real account and they say, okay, I am now ready to take that step into faith and be public with my diagnosis. So that to me was the number one thing in this past year or so is just all of the communication and all the connections that I've made within this community. It's really helped save my life for sure.
Yeah, it's amazing to see. Sometimes I don't do as much, to be honest, because I'm busy now, but not that I wasn't, but I have reached out to individuals, and you might have been one that we kind of talked for a long time. I never knew if I'd have you on because I didn't want you to feel pressure, but then here you're kind of like a flower blooming. It's a beautiful thing to see, but now you're going to become world renowned, so don't forget us in the show once you're famous. But I appreciate it.
Of course, yeah, I wanted to make sure that I understood the platform where I was coming from. And I also didn't want to come on the podcast when I was brand new to this and then maybe give it up. I was afraid that maybe I wouldn't have lasting power, but I really wanted to make sure that this was something I could consistently spend my time on. As you know, having kids, having a wife, we've got so many responsibilities out there. So was social media something that I could consistently dedicate some time to? And since I've got about a year or so under my belt now, I have definitely the determination to continue this fight and to continue to advocate for a cure to Parkinson's disease.
I'm glad you did and remembered me. So,
Always.
on this show, obviously you're here and you're the kind of spokesperson advocate, but I like to take a moment, which again, I don't want to compare, but a lot of shows don't, at least that I've been on. Who helps you during times of struggle? Because I always like to take a moment again to thank those in your life and behind the scenes, really, that help us become advocates and be better people. But without their support, I don't know how much, I know I wouldn't be able to do it. So just wanted to send love and support to those in your life. If you wanted to just let us know during the tougher times who supports you.
Oh, absolutely. For sure, first and foremost is going to be my immediate family. I named this account PD Family because I didn't know for how long I would be able to manage the account. So I wanted to make sure, even if I needed assistance and I needed my husband to help me with the account or to help have my kids chronicle what was going on with me because I couldn't hold a camera anymore. I wanted to make sure they were part of this journey and I share them selectively, but I do share them at times so you guys can see what it's like from a caregiver's perspective, from a child's perspective, living with someone with Parkinson's disease. So number one, first and foremost, is my family. I would say number two, obviously, is the community, because them as caregivers for me, they can only understand to a certain extent. There are people, hundreds, thousands out there, millions out there who are actually going through the tremors that I'm going through, who are having problems typing, who are having problems walking. And to hear their perspective, and get love and kindness from them, um, going through it themselves, that's really wonderful, and that's just such a great experience. Again, cannot advocate enough for people to get into this community because it's a wonderful, loving, giving, caring community for sure. So number one, my caregivers. Number two, my community.
Thanks. And we send our love and support again to both of those. It means a lot to us too. I have so many questions. We're not going to get to them all, but some fun ones I love is if you were asked to write a script to a movie about your life story, what would you call it? And what actress would play your role?
Oh my goodness. Oh, well, so she doesn't look anything like me, but she's
Okay.
my husband's favorite actress,
Uh,
Charlize Theron.
all
He
right.
thinks she's absolutely beautiful. So we're both tall, but I don't look anything like her. And
Okay.
then if we were to do a script of my story, I hope it would be the mom and Instagram, TikTok advocate who helped
Mhm.
a groundswell of information to have AI determine the cause of Parkinson's and determine a cure. And it was something that everyone could afford and was easily available. We were able to slowly dispel the world of this horrible disease.
I love it. That's a long one to write a lot. You're gonna have to be writing and writing.
The title needs to be work, George. The title needs some
We'll
work.
say in progress. What would you say to a younger self 10 years ago?
Enjoy the process and be grateful for where you are. I think that a younger me, I was so focused on end goal. I was so focused on the next milestone. I was so focused on what was ahead of me that I did not stop to appreciate the now. And something that I am grateful to my Parkinson's for is literally my body tells me moment to moment to stop and relax. Literally, physically, it tells me that I need to stop and relax. And it's that state of presence constantly because you have so many physical ailments going on at the same time and you're working to control those. It pulls you into the present and it has brought immense gratitude.
Despite being diagnosed, so many individuals I've met, at least, and become very close with, are able to kind of break bounds that someone, even without Parkinson's, I can't do. I picture every video you have as your Iron Woman or Iron Wonder Woman. How do you, get the kind of, I don't know the right word, but it's inspiring to me, but get the motivation, I guess, to be able to lift some of the weights, some competitions. Again, I'll be happy to announce I'm 6'2", 200 pounds. Even before all the surgeries, I couldn't do some of those things. And just a week ago, Team Fox from Michael J. Fox Foundation and some of the Parkinson's Disease Foundation champion runners were all at the Walt Disney World Marathon, which I want to go next year. Unfortunately, due to my ankle, I couldn't. But seeing all of you out there, whether it's caregivers or people diagnosed, accomplishing these goals is amazing. But I don't see many power lifters and things like you, which is also unique and why I was so excited to share what you do and all the effort you put in around the world.
Yeah, I mean, not every day is going to be exciting. There are some days where I'm really struggling, and I hope that I am as transparent with the hard days as I am with the good days. But just remember, every day is a day, and the consistency is where you really make, you create mountains out of molehills. So I am all about 1% better every single day. And the way I got to lifting the way I currently lift is by lifting very small weights at the beginning. You start Bulgarian split squats by using a pole to balance because you can't even balance on one leg. Then you drop the pole, and you add dumbbells, then you add heavier dumbbells, and just to provide a format and a space in social media for you to see the progression. You can literally go from the beginning of my page, the first post that I posted about working out or fitness and nutrition, and you can see my progression from start to finish. I'm of course not finished. We never are. We're always a work in progress. But I hope that if you guys are like, I'll never be able to do XYZ. Well, let me show you where I started. We all start at the same place, and it's just about putting one step in front of the other. And sometimes your 80% is your 100%. But it's consistency is really going to win the game. So hopefully I'm showing that with my, daily inspirations or my daily workouts.
Well, like I said, when we started, middle and the end, and even beyond, you inspire me, and so grateful for all that you do. Final question for now. I don't like to say again forever, but because we'll probably talk tonight anyway on Instagram. But is there something? Actually, the last one is if you could leave the Parkinson's community today with some words of encouragement, what would they be?
I think that my words of encouragement would be feel all the feels, go through all of the stages of grief, because if you try to rush any of those, you're going to regress. So just like losing a loved one, which I know you're so familiar with, you really have to allow yourself the time and the space. That for me was, basically I took 17 months between my diagnosis and then actually coming to a point of acceptance. So go through all of the stages of grief, and try to find the good in this disease, because there are some glimmers of hope in this disease. I know it's hard to find, and if you are really struggling with finding the hope, then perhaps you need to continue to grieve the diagnosis, because you're not quite yet ready at that phase of acceptance of looking and seeing the silver lining. And there is a silver lining at the end, trust me.
Well, it's been an honor and pleasure. And they always say the best things you wait for, and they do come true. So thank you again for all that you do, your time, and going forward together. I think we will really reach so many more. I wanted to also encourage everyone listening to please share this, but more importantly, please support PD.family, and you'll see that on the notes, but on TikTok and also Instagram, add the 5 at the TikTok. But now we're getting to math equations, and I'm not good at math, but I do have a little message for you and everybody listening. We love you, we support you, we care a lot about you, and you're never alone. I, along with my amazing guests, will advocate for you, and together I feel our voices are so much stronger. And I always end the show with them just getting started, because obviously I'm not, but every time I might have a struggle, and everyone listening, you can think the same way, no matter what's going on in our own life. I see our guest today and her incredible advocacy, and it inspires me to kind of shake off my problems or anything going on and jump right back up and advocate for Parkinson's cure. And until the cure is at everybody's doorsteps around the world, I won't stop. And I know that you won't either. So thank you again for your time. Just so happy that we finally got the opportunity to talk.
Thanks, George. Happy to be here.
Thank you. And thank you to everyone for listening. This has been another episode of Q&A with Sharon's son, George. Please stay tuned. So much more to come. And why? Well, it's easy. We still have a lot of work to do, and I'm not stopping anytime soon. In fact, we're going to keep going even after the lights, cameras, and paparazzi leave today. We're both going to be right back out there fighting. So thank you again. We send our love, and please stay tuned. So much more to come. Thanks, everyone.